practical guidance session that concerns everyone aspired to join this beautiful world. And a session, flight instruction, aircraft restoration, and career choices. Captain Jeffrey Whitesell presents to us the essence of his experience to guide the youth towards stable professional choices. Welcome, Captain Jeffrey.
That's not what you want to be saying to ATC, right? At the end, and there a time or two. First of all, thanks especially to the Israel Lance, Prince Sultan, good friend of mine, through the lighting, mutual friend at Boston. What a treat to be hearing it this year. Last year was amazing, and I'm even more profoundly moved by the beautiful people of Saudi Arabia. Thank you. So let's see, do I get to do this all by myself? Hey, but hello there for Delta Airlines and Western Airlines, who were some 40 years. More important than being an airline pilot, I was a flight instructor. People often ask me, what was the best license I ever got? And without question, I always answer the same. The flight instructor's license. It was my privilege and an honor to teach with both of those airlines in their training departments. And I feel that I could make the claim that I changed the direction of those airlines at the their safety event. I can't tell this story without talking about my dad. My dad was Bill Whitesell. He was a pilot for Pan American World Airways, if you remember that, Eddie. And before that, guess what? He was a flight instructor on Greenhouse. The amazing thing about it is even after he got their job, he continued to teach it. And I grew up listening to his wonderful stories about the grand adventures he had crossing the Atlantic Ocean in the beautiful Constellation. He continued to teach, even though he's still flying for the airlines. Now back then, there weren't any real schools nor typical flight instruction lesson. You'd go out to the little dusty airport, and the flight instructor would show up, you'd go fly. My dad would come back from the flight list, and then he would see with family, this person, he was teaching, sitting in their car, sweltering away. And he didn't like that. He saw the change all of that. Frequently, my mother would set an extra place at the table at home, and we always had flight students who would come to dinner or lunch, and several even moved in with us, living with us. And I thought this was normal. My dad wanted to change all of that. He didn't want to see any more families sitting in the hot car all day. He got flying lesson. He came up with this idea that if he built a resort airport, that the kids would want to go out to this place and swim and enjoy riding stables and a golf course at the restaurant. And by the way, Dad, while we're out there, you can get a flying lesson. My dad created this place called Flying W Ranch in New Jersey. You can see we had an airplane-shaped swimming pool. It's the only one in the world. It's still there. We dug that swimming pool with our bare hands. I remember I had two little sisters out there with both toy buckets, nesting, shovels, digging dirt to create that swimming pool. Out there in the top right, there's a kid on the John Deere tractor mowing a lawn. That's me. One of my favorite memories was one time I was up there doing a lawn, chugging along on this big tractor, and I felt this presence come up behind me. I looked over my shoulder. There's a Lockheed Constellation, which is a big airplane, buzzing the field. It's one of my dad's roommates, letting him know that he's in town. He's so low that when I turned to look, I can see passengers in the windows waving. Here's that close. Then airplane pulled up to the north and turning to the left. I saw the sun lift off the three tails. Saw the sun off to the 4 minutes of the television. I thought, boy, that's the life for me. That's what I want to do.
Right.
The concept grew. As you can see, we were really, really busy with flight speeder. The airport grew. We extended the runway there. It became quite the thing. Now my mom, instead of setting a place at the table for students, she was setting a place at the table for starving flight instructors. And I always had plans to sign me from the time I was very small. I think it probably worked me for life. I thought that, looking back, I was influenced by probably some of the greatest instructors in my the white. We were on the cover of ALP magazine, number Stonics. We thought we popular place. And grew. Before we were done, we had 96 collaborations. There was a cargo airline and a passenger airline. Our boss was showed up here where this driveway is. And I literally had all these airplanes in my backyard. I started as a mechanic, working on the airplane. These old antique airplanes for my father. The short story, how do you go with someone, how do you steer them? Then my career choices. Our business grew and grew. My dad at one point had their jet, one of the first things. He came into landed in the ice still. And when he parked, the brakes froze up. And he's trying to leave again, and the airplane would boom. So I'm crawling underneath the wing. If I winter top clothes, but still it's wet and slushy wake. Spraying isopropyl alcohol on the brakes, walking up to the cockpit saying brakes and these things doing no. Rolling back in the slush, went back under the airplane 5 or 6 or 7 times. Finally came out, released the brakes, and away he goes. And takes off up to the north, RD drum to the south, and I see the sun with the confident, the wings up on their jet, I'm seeing the shivering. He's going to Florida where it's his home. He was in the cockpit in his shoots where it's down. And shivering and like pilot, mechanic, and pilot, didn't die. I think I'll be a pilot. Didn't. And the outfit permit, as you can see, we got a lot of these C-46 cutters, parties. I spent most of my young life working on the airplanes.
Right, 80s.
Then my dad had a passion for history. He was a U.S. Marine, he did World War II. And his fortunes allowed him to buy refugee like my Corsair, which we restored. It was my first rescue. I'm writing a book. It's going to be called Rescues from Oblivion. You'll see if you have more about it. I've been very privileged all my life to be involved in saving a great number of historic airplanes. The Corsair was our first ranger. I said, like, you push that. So they're going to store it at home. Anyway, that airplane now belongs, or did belong to Paul Alton. Recently, it was purchased by the wall. Sadly, it is telling a finest example of the Corsair waters. And I say that. We went to California. My dad's fortunes of the flying to be started to falter. Dad wanted us to learn how to fly in sailplanes. Yeah, this is my first solo. It's my brother Bruce there. We got our first solos in sail lights and we go for it. And then we went to rescue this airplane. This is a B-18 Molo, which was a World War II bomber. It's called budget bomber. It was in the competition with a much more familiar B-17. Unfortunately, the B-17 took off in that competition with that military awards and had a flight control problem. And they crashed. And they were B-18 got the contract on my defense. It wasn't a very good weapon, but it secured its place in history because this was the first airplane to ever sing the German U-boat and a very good control or airtime control. So we went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where the airplane was abandoned and worked on it for 6 weeks. We not only got the airplane flying, you see, like, if that's remote, it's what it is. You know, they're rather convenient. On the repertoire, they always shipping it. Listen, I don't know. Sit down. Technology day. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you're in the last other off of Google. It's too bad there's enough sack. The sun of the red and everything to be settled. Maybe it should. Magical. Not only did we fly the airplane, we took him to the Air Force Museum at Daisy Hoster, where they put up and that's all it's today. I get to the job. Please, if there's any questions here, I can't hear me, interrupt me.
Then they was part all of what did the American
We went back to New Jersey and things changed. Flying Navy was New York, and we created yet another company. The title is out of sight there, but it's called Professional Recreation. I thought it was found I supplied because I was able to write manuals and also to create training programs. So I created all the materials for the professional air transport. I made a little fold-out desk. Everybody knows what I wrote every single page of the adult to create a type of 35 air taxi.
to
And very quickly cranked out my commercial alternatives from creating some that went into. And then later, through this year, it was our backbone of our Figma team years and air taxi service in Northeast United States. Our customers wanted a bigger airplane,
and the
and we found it down at the full in Houston, Texas. And my dad had found the part of this airline was, and it was his favorite airplane. This particular airplane had a beautiful executive interior, and we bought it, put it to our and
about
and see if I had a picture of the interior. We landed some very influential customers between the Monday Night Football highlights and with ending on by the rest of the fight with our card to sell and as a result the rest of the days on way to when my dad would fly and my brother would treat my sons I would go on it. He wouldn't serve the Bellatrix come and that is a swap without again I thought this was normal. I thought this was a normal way to grow up. But imagine I'm trying to disappoint them in my first year of college, trying to study biology and chemistry. And my dad would call and say, "Give me another trip." And all of a sudden, my studies were sort of not important. We had a giant economic downturn in 1972, and we showed this was dying in Serbia.
so they down.
And then once very rich, moments where you go, now what do I do? I had gotten my commercial my taking a craft course down in the city of New Jersey, and I met two very influential flight instructors, Mr. Jack Ace-Muad and Mr. John Schultz, Jack. And they heard my crisis talk trying to go to college and fly these channels. They picked up on the fact that I had a gift for Yale. And they said, "Well, you should come out to Ohio State. You could be a flight instructor. You can take your classes in the morning, and you can go out to the airport and teach people how to fly. And afternoon, there's even a free bus." And I said, "Oh, yeah, that's all very nice of it." I'm so going to order for my dad. Well, my dad's fortunes changed, as I mentioned, and all went away. Suddenly, there it was with my commercial multi-instrument ready to do whatever, and there was no aim. So I borrowed my neighbor's 182, and I went out trying to teach myself the flight instructors maneuvers. My dad got on board and did me a tremendous favor. I would only need to teach my maneuvers, but I needed to teach him how to teach the maneuvers. And I learned a big thing technique working with the students. Like you teach them something, the best way to get to the student I got him, because they're never going to teach you. The most senior one that is a white discarding. I went up to Allentown and got the license, the flight instructor's license. In the morning, he was and jumped right in the same airplane and flew right to Ohio State. And we walked in there one lunchtime to find Judge Schultz. And I said, "Well, remember me? I want to go to work here. I want to teach classes in the morning. 5 students in the afternoon. I want to ride on the free bus." He looked at me kind of funny and said, "Well, I guess we better see if we're hiring." And we went down to Human Resources, and I'm sure there's my gal there just told me, we're still telling the story. I'll never forget it. She's looking at me waiting. What a job. Looks at me. "Let's think about this license today." "Yes, ma'am." "You must really want this job." "Yes, ma'am." And that's how I ended up teaching for Ohio State University. I was there for 3 years. It was an absolutely wonderful program. I worked with some post-professional instructors all limited their their aviation program is still, I think, good.
Either way, I
But when I graduated, another funny story, if I may. My mom and dad had moved in Florida and retired. I didn't really know what to do, but I decided to go to Florida and go down. I loaded all my belongings in the U-Haul truck, yellow road. When I got to Daytona Beach, I pulled in the driveway and unloaded all my stuff. And I noticed my dad wasn't around. I was saying to my mom, "Yeah, where's Dad?" And she said, "Oh, he doesn't live here anymore." I'm like, "What do you mean he doesn't live here anymore?" My dad had decided at age 53 that he doesn't make familiar something because he didn't have a college degree. So he enrolled down in the middle, Aeronautical University, at age 53 to be a freshman in college. And part of that, he decided at age 53 that we would lead to fraternity. He was living a fraternity house with kids my age down there in Daytona Beach. And Mom said, "Will you go visit him? He lives there now." So I took my U-Haul trailer back and I went over to the fraternity house. Imagine my shock and surprise as I'm pulling up. I see an ambulance and I see a gurney coming out with my dad on the gurney. I go running up there and look at my dad. "What's going on?" "Oh, we ran across the street. We're having some sort of a shenanigans with the sorority house across the street. And they were throwing water balloons. Just slipped and fell and I broke my hip. That was it. You're 53 years old. So I ended up having to help him get to this closet in the Nectar-Riddle because he's on crutches. And one day during lunch, he introduced me to the chief. As I skipped the story, but that's all right. He introduced me to the chief flight instructor, and that's how I ended up teaching Hangar, which is the other giant aviation university in the United States, and it's still a highly renowned, wonderful school. I'm the highest recommendation to pregnant. You guys hear me okay? This thing is getting cool feedback. I'm sure it's related. Great. So that's how I ended up teaching for the two major universities. A lot of my life is with a little bit of ricochet rabbit, a little bit of just being in the right place at the right time. But the central theme here is it's always been that flight instructor license that made the difference. And if there's young aviators in the room, please listen carefully, get the flight engines, study those license, and I guarantee you it'll change your life. So I thought of freight lights for a while. I'm not sure. Oh, that's okay. One of the things that happens when you're building a career is you look at these blog posts that we and there's always someone that you just can't save it to fix. And in a young instructor's life, you're trying to get to that magic 1,500 hours or 2,000 hours or whatever you can produce to get the next job. And I wasn't getting both engine time, I wasn't getting the night time, I wasn't getting instant time. How the post was very important in log rings. So in typical fashion, I decided I'll just buy it the man. I bought a sick. Sorry, there's a picture on it. And started selling time. It didn't pull this out that Aztec type. I started selling time to the agricultural students who were basically the same crisis, didn't get local licenses of agricultural, but they couldn't get those columns from the log government. To make a lot of stories short there, I bought that airplane, it was breaking out. The first year I put 1,400 hours on it.
Yes, sorry.
All of a sudden, all the road were fixed. I would take 2 students at a time and we would night and park across the street down the coast of Florida, shooting roaches, shooting bullets, land them. One of my favorite places to stop was at Miami, where they had lots of big old things, which, as you already saw, profoundly affected my youth. I managed to get a job flying that airplane. I'm sure you can see the picture of it. It's kind of a rough example of the Douglas DC-6. There's a particular airplane that 4 different engines on it. They weren't even the right serial. It was terrible. The maintenance departments down there in what was called corrosion quad was non-existent. I landed that job. I was flying the airplanes and I was that. And then I got to fly the constellation. Remember the story about the job? Again, you can see this is a pretty rough example. I'm actually in the airplane. We've got the number one engine shut down. You see the windows that are open and it's removable. This airplane was used for moving livestock, and that's all it did. And I can tell you, a uniform would stand up in the corner by itself after flying 36,000 miles of live journeys. And the Constellation got the unfortunate nickname of being a Lockheed tri-motor because it many times it would have an engine shut down. And I flew some F-35 and came back every single time on 3 engines. So I very quickly figured out that the maintenance outline was not just the safety verification for ocean tornado was abysmal. And there were several more advances that the FAA deciding we're going to fix this. I kind of skipped that out. And I came up with yet another company that is called Challenger Transport. I wrote all the rules, did all the training. We brought a beautiful example of the Apprentice C-46. I put it to work. I created a 121 airline certificate, which is the same certificate that Delta Airlines, Eastern Airlines, Academy. And was pretty successful at it, except I decided maybe I needed to get into the jet oiling and to go wait your airline job. So I saw the jet first. You'll love this story. So I saw him at England. He says to me, you know, Jeff, you had what? Choice that I'm part of it. Like I leave the company, he had a headed sheet. And I wasn't aware of this Hispanic. You always said you can take that or you can take stock. Well, I took the cash and I bought a Volkswagen again that I could do that when I went to training with Western Airlines. I probably should have taken the stock because Challenger Transport today is known as MDIS. The company is now called WINDIS. I should have taken the stock. So anyway, the wonderful job that I did with Western Airlines totally lasted 2 years, and I found myself out on the street in Manhattan for a load. And my dad and my brother had decided to buy an AC-7. See the all of an airplane in the background there, no engines, no drapes, no radios, no instruments. They're living in caravans there, wanting to be on the airplane, and I joined them. We restored that airplane and turned it into this beautiful example that he said. Before I was done with that operating, I that 4 EC-7s was operating south and central in outcome. And you can see the results there. The euro was buried at $80 million. And 4 years later, I lost 4.4 million. Another sterling success story in aviation. So fast forward a number of years, I decided I wanted to fly an airliner and build a museum of airline history. I feel very strongly that the airline industry was built by the employees. It wasn't built by Wall Street. I wasn't built, but to a certain extent, and it had union had something to do with it. But it was the employees, it was their esprit de corps, it was their ingenuity, their talent to build airline industry. There's no tribute to that. I want you to build a museum of airline industry. So I went looking for an EC3 that I faint stumbled on old 636 X-ray, the USA airline Canada 04 today, and I was with my dad. In 1994, I purchased the airplane, restored it. You can see it's got a nice exterior, but and I flew the airplane for 15 years. Enjoyed it immensely with other economic housing. We donated them to museum in Chino, California. That's how big one I was done with. Like young fellow there to be the sweet spot for this airplane was I got to teach a lot of my fellow airline pilots, not a lot of other people, in the Martin 404 they got to fly at vintage going out. Some of the best flying I've ever done in my life, and it's sharing this airplane with the fellow pilots.
That's the darkness you do it. That was a good way. And then
So we donated it and put them in Valley, Arizona.
credit.
Where it is today. You might get some kind of fun low passes.
When I started, because that happens. Civil, yeah, the peaceful. When I did not, that we got is that I got a
Wait, this is the last ever landing I had a flight for.
it's follow. So I about these
Almost. I was 3 today. You can imagine that.
the end wood. So I had to be good, but you did a lot. I so it which time what you know do that is
Everyone around the world would be the very last to flight the arm finish here. I'm pleased to announce that as of right now, I'm restoring everything again. And a lot of people ask me, you say, well, your dad went broke in an airplane. I just fixed it up. And then you bought it, at least you could have fired it, and fixed it, and you went broke with the airplane. Why would you want to do that again? And I answer, well, maybe the third time's the charm.
I first suggest
just like up so yeah.
Yes, now
about these city.
I found myself, I retired from Elko to start running out of things to do. A friend of mine called and said, could you help us with this TC3? We've got brand new engines, brand new props for everything. Tree lines. From his home in Missoula, we're going to go across the Atlantic Ocean to reenact a element in that. So I flew up to see the airplane, and my friend had said, carrying them some new props, which I presume were on the airplane. As you can see, no props, no engines, no accessories, no installation. This was January 2019. And they intended to go across the Atlantic at May. Airplane hadn't flown in 20 years.
Scanning your requirements. And then let's see here. Don't take 2 weeks.
Let me get time for this.
Value. Let's just like all this trick. That's let's see. Let's fly.
Maybe not.
Let's look at you Austin. Yeah, thanks.
Inasa,
That
did they see?
wow. Wait.
I don't know why I react, but I don't.
Think about
So while we're working on the airplane, we determined that we had the best time to train the pilots. I was able to either qualified for over pilots to learn to fly in the airplane. So I had known about this tasting trade. I had restored this airplane, I think, 84, put it in original Western colors. Excuse me.
please.
I found Dick Humbert there was the principal by the project. And I said, we're going to have to train pilots, we're not going to fly. And I don't want to do the training on our brand new engines on Miss Montana. We'll do the big because of the carbon. And what did we do? What we do is there's another piece of free. Well, the minute I said Western Airlines, I had flown that question. We went down to Arkansas, bought the airplane. Well, we had updated it for 5 years. And we got home and they did a great job training all the pilots for us. Here's the first flight that I spent 10 years. And the short version is we made it to Duxford all the way across the over the top of the ice. And the green of the nice gap. Tremendous adventure. It's pretty wet. And then we're going to fly along the way with this Hangar.
Well, I want to see this. I got this.
Okay, again, now what is it? I got that project, I know what to do. So I went up to Seattle, I got back in touch with my original batch. I was flying off the water, and I got a job behind that airplane teaching me at Western Airplane with flight strip guys and speak to my person. The one that fly big airlines, wingful airlines, the beavers, so it's like your dad have 210 hours in time, and I didn't have this. But I felt like you teach it the planes to put together a plane where we wanted to do 50 hours for a single 5 years. I thought the marketing told out was so successful with it. I did 250 hours in the center.
But they put me up.
I got the magic job of produce the biggest coconut operator in the West.
We
That was going to be my quote unquote retirement job. And as you might know, fate and other things have not been done. the thing called COVID came on,
Philippines.
and I found myself out of work again. So I got involved with the planes and Faith at Chino, California, to restore this in 26. I thought about my risk hands. But now you're convinced that I'm absolutely crazy. I think so, but why is it so important to say that she's... This is a tribute to all men and women in uniform who went to war or are in men and women in uniform right now who are protecting all of our freedoms that allow freedom-loving nations to stay free. Those freedoms are not free. They come at a cost. And I salute all of our veterans by helping restore these old airplanes. And then, this is going to be familiar, my first look at a constellation. My friend Steve Hinton called me and said, we're doing a constellation, to bring the story full circle. Look familiar? We got no engines, no props, no instruments. We restored that airplane over a 12-year period. I'm very proud to be the flight engineer on it right now. It's the only flyable Lockheed Constellation on Earth, and that's what it looks like now. Excuse me. Truly magnificent restoration, fantastic airplane. Everywhere we go, everybody has a story about the Constellation. And this is my favorite part. You remember I told you about a certain low pass that happened? Let's see if we can get this to roll here. Yes. Do we have the audio for it? Maybe not. Unfortunately, we can't hear it. That was our first flight of the airplane. We've been flying it now for almost 3 years. So you have to ask, what is it with these old airplanes? Why do they push my buttons so much? I've often asked myself that question. Am I crazy to, continually spend all this money and all this time and all these efforts to restore these old airplanes? And yeah, I think I am just a little bit crazy. My wife agrees. Yeah, thanks, Ken. The craziness passed on. I'm very proud to say that my number one son, Doug, is now a pilot at Delta Airlines, so the nut did not fall far from the tree. I went to his graduation ceremony, and I couldn't help but kick the tires on the 747, which is one of my favorite airplanes. And, of course, I'm mimicking a famous piece of art here. So this is a thank you, once again, to Saudi Arabia and to His Royal Highness. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you. So I'm 71 years old now, and you've heard quite a long story here, and my favorite things to do are to teach in sailplanes and gliders and to teach in float planes. I wanted at one point when I was going to retire to build a dream school, the ultimate flight school where I would teach people how to fly in sailplanes first and then teach them in float planes next. I'm too old to do that, but I reach out to the young people here, and I can tell you, with my preservation of airplanes, I had an opportunity to save some history, preserve some history. You have an opportunity, though, to create history. You could teach this way. You could teach in gliders first, and then in float planes next. And Prince Sultan mentioned it the other day. You will be creating not just pilots, you'll be creating airmen, you'll be creating aviators who will have the skills. And right now the world is critically short of flight instructors. So what my big spiel is all about is, if you have the passion to fly, please consider being a flight instructor. Please consider being a certified flight instructor. We need your help right now to build the industry of the future. But I want you to do more than that, and here's my closing message. If you're going to be a certified flight instructor, that's fine, you're a CFI. But what I'm looking for is a thing called a PFI. I want you to be a passionate flight instructor. I want you to pour yourself into it and make it a life decision, not just to teach long enough to get to the 1,500 hours to get the airline job, but to continue to teach after that. That's what I did, and that's what made all the difference. There you go. Please feel free to jot this down. I love to communicate with fellow pilots, young pilots building your careers. I should also say that I told you how my mom always kept an extra place at the dining room table for students. Well, my wife, to this day, keeps an extra place at my dining room table. We have an extra room at our home in Camarillo, California. There's 4 flight schools there. There's a glider school nearby. My other home is in Seattle, Washington, where you can stay with me, and we'll walk down to the docks, and you'll fly float planes. This is how to contact me. Please do. Thank you.